Hello guys, welcome back to A Page in the Chapter, or welcome if you are new here. My name is Paige and today we are doing a rather late mid-year book freakout tag. The return of this tag completely took me by surprise. I saw people uploading them and I was just like, oh god, is it really time for the mid-year book freakout tag already? And that made me feel really old, so I hesitated filming it, and now it's July. And I'm filming it in July, so it's no longer like the middle. I mean, it's still the middle of the year, but you know, it's not the exact like middle month. I always think this is a really fun tag, both to kind of look back on what you've read so far and like check in with yourself about what you've read so far, how are you doing with your goals, and then also to kind of set some goals for the end of the year, and then you can look back at this video at the end of the year and see whether you actually achieved them. So if you guys like tags or you like what you have seen so far, then do please feel free to hit that big red subscribe button down below and stay tuned for future content. I upload twice a week on a Wednesday and a Friday, so there is no shortage of bookish content here for you to enjoy. All of my tags are in a playlist entitled BookTube Classics, and I try to post about one a month, so if you like that type of content then you will definitely find it here. Without further ado, let's get into the tag. So the first question in this tag is the best book I have read so far this year. And I saw this question, I was planning my answers, and there have been some really good books this year, but this was the book that immediately jumped to mind. I also wanted to pretty much use this book for every answer that it applied to. It comes up again later in the tag. Like, I just loved this book. It's really stayed with me, and that is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. This was my first TJ Klune read and it was everything that I wanted it to be and more. So this follows our main character called Wallace, and he refuses to accept the fact that he has died, and so when he's taken to like the crossing point between life and death, he just refuses to cross over. He is given an opportunity, let's say, to make up for a lot of the things he regrets in life, to understand more about life in his death and help other people understand more about life and death and grief and things like that. It is just an absolutely beautiful book and a wonderful understanding of grief and loss, and I just could not find a single fault with it. Like, it was just an absolutely beautiful read with some really lovable characters, and I just loved the general plotline. Like, TJ Klune is just such a good storyteller, and I cannot wait to start reading House on the Cerulean Sea because I need more TJ Klune in my life because I loved this book so much. The next question is, what is the best sequel I have read this year? And I have two answers for this. The first one being Collided by Lauren Asher. I've just noticed a theme in these books. This is book 2 in the Dirty Air trilogy, which is Lauren Asher's Formula One romance series. I'm a big Formula One fan, and I decided to pick these up to kind of do a little review video for you, which I still have every intention of finishing. And I just personally preferred this one over the second one. I loved Liam and Sophie's relationship more than I was expecting to. Loved the events of this book and this like bucket list trope. I'm not normally one for a bucket list trope, but I just had a lot of fun with this book. So yeah, I'd say I haven't really read too many sequels this year, even though that was my whole goal of the year, was to only read continuations. Loved reading this, would happily go back and read it again. I'm actually really considering rereading it, but I have other books that I need to read. And then the next book that I want to use as the best sequel that I've read this year is Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. So clearly I've just been a big Lauren Asher fan this year. Also clearly Lauren Asher's sequels are better than her first books, because this one was a lot better than the fine print in my personal opinion. I loved the fine print, I loved the Disney setting, and I really thought that the Disney setting would make it be my favourite. But this one just really like came through. I am a bit of a sucker for fake dating, so maybe I just personally preferred the tropes in this one. Also, not only fake dating but marriage of convenience, so it just really had like all of the tropes that I have always loved in it, and I just loved the way that these tropes were handled, and I really liked the way that the Disney was included but also not really included. Like, you could very clearly tell that it was in the same world as the fine print, but this one was just a little bit far removed from that world. It was a little bit more grown up, and I personally just enjoyed it a lot more than the first one. A new release that you haven't read yet but want to. I've had this book since, I want to say May, and that is The Merciless Ones by Namina Fauna. This is the sequel to The Gilded Ones, a book that I gave 5 stars and loved. It follows our main character who exists in a world where when women reach a certain age, they have to go through this like purity ritual where their skin is cut, and if they bleed red, then they are deemed like passive enough and acceptable enough to go into society and be married and raise families and things like that. But if they don't bleed red, then like no one really knows what happens. And our main character, of course, bleeds gold, which is a very interesting thing to occur in the book, and I don't want to give anything away. But what I loved about this book is that it is a YA fantasy, but it feels much more mature than a YA. Like, not in terms of accessibility or anything like that. I would still say that this is appropriate for a young adult audience, but just in terms of the critique of the patriarchy and the feminism and some of the messages involved in this book feel so much more well done than you normally see in young adult. And that's just what I loved about the first book, and I just haven't been in the mood for fantasy in order to pick this one up, but I do really, really want to read it. An anticipated release for the second half of the year. I have 2 very, very anticipated releases. I have Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong, which I have pre-ordered. I'm very excited about. I have loved Chloe Gong this year. Her These Violent Delights duology was like the first few books that I read this year. I loved them, had a great time with them. Yeah, very, very excited for Foul Lady Fortune, which is like a spin-off duology from These Violent Delights, but this one is an As You Like It retelling. And Chloe Gong just writes YA fantasy very well. Again, she feels like she writes beyond YA fantasy in the sense of the history and the politics that she can weave into her stories, but still make them very accessible and applicable for younger audiences. So very excited about that. And then it just wouldn't be my channel if I didn't mention Taylor Jenkins Reid. So my most anticipated book to come out next month will be Carrie Soto Is Back. I have a signed first edition on the way to me next month. Literally, like, I cannot contain my excitement about the fact that we have a new Taylor Jenkins Reid book coming out. Like, I just cannot wait. So that is my most anticipated book to come. My biggest disappointment of the year so far. This one's probably gonna offend a lot of you, and that is House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas. I just could not get into this book. I really felt like it was too long and complicated, and that was a complaint that so many people had about the first book that I did not see, but I think I could manage it with the first book, and I just couldn't manage it like again for a second book. You know, I went through all of that world building in the first book. I just did not want to go through more plot and world building in the second book, and I feel like what really kept me going through those things in the first book was that I was just so eager and on the edge of my seat to see what happened between Hunt and Bryce, and in the second book there wasn't really anything keeping me on the edge of my seat in terms of their relationship, and that's like why I was reading the book. I wasn't reading it for the fantasy, I was reading it for the romance. This book just did not do it for me. I was really highly anticipating it, and it was a very big letdown. But if I do ever have the time or the motivation, then I will reread House of Earth and Blood and then read House of Sky and Breath, and hopefully like binge reading them will make them a little bit better and easier to understand. But they're massive, massive chunky books, so who knows if that's ever going to happen. The biggest surprise of the year. So I have one that's a good surprise and one that's a bad surprise. The good surprise would be The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. Now, I did not expect to enjoy a book that was like a TikTok sensation, especially on an app like TikTok. Then I do tend to be a little bit wary, but I was very pleasantly surprised by this book, and I've been an idiot. I didn't even read this book. I read it last year. I'm pretty sure I didn't read it this year. I haven't really been keeping up to date on my Goodreads tracking, so I'm a bit confused about what I've read this year, but I'm pretty sure this book was not one of them. The second book for this question was The Spanish Love Deception, but because I hated that book and I thought I'd really like it because it's fake dating, but I also did not read that this year. So let's just move on. So the next question is my newest favourite author, and this was a very easy one for me. I'm not typically like an author person, I just go for books that sound good to me, but there are a few exceptions. Obviously Taylor Jenkins Reid being one of them, but she is not a new favourite author for me. But a new favourite author would be Miss Chloe Gong, because it's not very often that I actually like follow authors on their social media and like want to know about book releases and like what they're working on and things like that. Chloe Gong's writing makes me want to know about what she's got coming up and follow her on social media, and I just find her very relatable and a very like motivational human being. So Chloe Gong would be my newest favourite author. My newest fictional crush. Ooh, I've been reading a lot of romance this year, so I've had a lot of new fictional crushes, but my newest one would have to be Rhys Larson from Twisted Games, which is book 2 in the Twisted series by Anna Huang. This book follows our main character Bridget, and she is the heir to the crown of a small European country, except she falls in love with her bodyguard Rhys, which is a big problem because she is not allowed by law to take the throne unless she is married to someone of noble birth. It's very Princess Diaries, but make it older, sexier, darker, more political. Like, it's just, there's a very clear link between the two, and if you liked one then you should definitely go read this book. Quite the crush on Mr. Rhys Larson. To follow on from that, we obviously have the next question, which is my newest like favourite character. One thing you should really know about me is that I'm quite a sucker for sidekicks, especially if they are like anthropomorphized sidekicks. Disney do them very well. So in that vein, my newest favourite character would have to be the dog from Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune, because he is a very anthropomorphized ghost dog and he is just the cutest, most heartwarming, wonderful thing in the entire world, and I hope that he has lots of tennis balls in his life because I loved him so much. And then I may as well just continue holding this book up because the next question is a book that made you cry. Sobbed like a baby at the end of this book because, again, it is like the heartwarming, very character-centric plot points that set me off with books. I have to really care about the characters, and they have to be like bittersweet or heartwarming endings. If they're like just like sad or something, then that's probably not going to make me cry. It's like the bittersweet stuff. I'm gonna get all teary just talking about it again. A book that made you happy. Look, I have been taking great pleasure in reading romances. They're light, they are fluffy, they do entertain me and keep me happy. There isn't a book that comes to mind as like I finished the end of the book and I was like, oh my god, like that book has made me so happy. But the book that I will say for this is Our Violin Ends by Chloe Gong, just because again this had like a sad but hopeful ending, and that hopeful ending did like leave me on a very positive note, and as a whole the reading experience of this duology made me very happy. Like, it had been a while since I had picked up a fantasy book and then gone out and bought the sequel before I'd even finished reading the first one because I was so excited about it, and reading a book that then made me start like plotting and planning and drafting my own stories. Like, that hasn't happened in a very long time. So I feel like Our Violin Ends by Chloe Gong, for its hopeful ending and the impact on getting me to start writing again, was just like a necessary one to put into this video. And then the most beautiful book that I have read, obviously I would like to say Under the Whispering Door, but I feel like you guys are getting bored of me talking about that one, so I'm gonna say These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, because it was just a beautiful experience, and like the craftsmanship of it being a Romeo and Juliet retelling, but also very much just feeling like it was its own story, and it being set in like China and being influenced by Chloe Gong's upbringing there and like history of China, and it just had so many elements to it, and it was just beautifully crafted. So in that sense, especially in the way that it was a very complex story but still young adult and accessible for young adult, it was beautiful. So These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. And then the final question is a book that I would like to get read by the end of the year, and that is Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. Now, I have never really been tempted by Sally Rooney books in the past, but I read Conversations with Friends for my Reading Like Taylor Swift vlog, and I actually really enjoyed it. It did make me feel a little bit melancholic, but I still like really enjoyed the experience of it, and I was really happy that I'd read it by the end of it. And I've heard that this book can be quite a hopeful book. It looks like a very happy, hopeful book. I'm not sure it will be happy. I think Sally Rooney writes these like 20-year-old characters experiencing ennui very well, and I would really like to see that, but also see a hopeful ending to that, because I am a 20-something depressed person, so I would really like to get this read, hopefully by the end of the summer even, let alone the end of the year, and I will obviously let you know what I think. And so yes, that is the end of my mid-year book freakout tag. I do hope that you guys have enjoyed watching, and let me know some of your answers to these questions, or let me know that you have done this tag and I can go and check out your videos, because I just love this tag. I look forward to it every year and always get really happy to start seeing it pop up in my subscription box every year. If you guys liked this video and we kind of like the same books and you'd want to see more from me, then do please feel free to hit that big red subscribe button down below to stay tuned for future content. I upload twice a week on a Wednesday and a Friday, so there is no shortage of bookish content here for you to enjoy. If you guys would like to see what I'm reading and how I'm reviewing it in real time, then do feel free to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Page and Chapter, because that's just an easier way to see what I'm reading and way less commitment from you guys. I hope you guys are having a fantastic week, you are enjoying everything that you are reading, and there are no reading slumps in your future, and I will see you on Wednesday for my next video. Bye guys.